Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this very interesting little knife right here. This is the Millit Knives Torrent. So, I first handled a prototype of one of these guys at the Blade Show in June of 2017. And there it was a knife that was very impressive to me. It didn't make my final list because it was just a prototype there, but it was a knife that I absolutely got put on my radar, and so when they opened it up for pre-orders, I just jumped right on it because I thought it was a very interesting kind of thing. I initially pre-ordered for the CTS XHP blade. In fact, I initially got it. But they later offered a Damasteel upgrade, and I went ahead and paid the extra and did that, and I'm super happy that I did. A couple of things to highlight here, in addition to a size comparison, which I should probably do. Right here it is against your Spyderco Delica, so you can see that this is actually not a big knife. And in fact, especially when folded, this is pretty damn compact. This is a nice little Nick Shabazz knife size. You can see here it fits very nicely into that little realm there. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 1, and somewhere around here, the steel wheel cut jack in 3-inch configuration. And against one of the other knives I saw at Blade Show that I very much liked, the Brad Southern Mini Tolk. So right there you go. That's your size comparison. Next thing to mention, this is a design by TJ Schwarz, who actually designed one of my other favorite knives of Blade Show, the Millit Knives Arius. He is knife designer on Instagram, and he did really great work here. I'm super impressed with the design of this guy, and he's a designer to watch, I think. He's doing a lot of great stuff. Then finally, a couple of other notes real quick. This guy has an aftermarket edge, meaning I sharpened it myself here, because I have been using it a fair amount, and I wanted to put a really nice, pretty edge on it. And the other thing is you'll see a little bit of texturing on the back of the flipper tab here. That was me. That is not for them to blame, but I'll talk about why I did it a little bit later on. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of your Millit Knives Torrent here. First off, there is a lot of good. I like so many aspects of this knife. This has a very nice size. Like I mentioned, it's not all that big. You know, it's not, particularly in terms of blade length, it's going to be legal in a lot of places, coming in at 3.25 or so, but the size of it is very compact for carry, which is very nice. And couple that with a excellent clip here, which you can see here has plenty of ramp, plenty of spring. This is just beautiful in the pocket. I very much enjoy having this guy in the pocket because it's practically not there. And so this is a great size, 100%. And I think it's right in that sweet spot, at least for my everyday carry. So that's good. Next thing, this is made in the USA by Millit Knives, hence it being called the Millit Torrent. They're up in Idaho, and so that's something I always like supporting, a small American business. Can't argue with that. Next thing, the price on this guy is actually pretty solid. It's right about where I would expect. The base model of this guy is $375, and that was in CTS XHP for this round. But you can do an upgrade, or you can buy it new, I believe, for $500 with the Damasteel blade, like you see it on this guy, which has the crazy variations in it. I'll show you that there. The thing is, for small batch production in the USA, I think that's a fine price, and especially with the Damasteel, you're hard-pressed to find a nice, beautiful design knife in Damasteel around that price. And so honestly, I feel like it's not a bad value. They've done a good job on the pricing here. It's competitive. Next thing, the design on this guy is absolutely great. TJ Schwarz is doing great work, and you can see that in a bunch of ways. I mean, it's absolutely unique. I mean, already there are people copying it, so you know it's an interesting and nice, unique design there. But things like this skeletonization here that's external. Carbon fiber skeletonized out on top of it and then mirrored on the other side. There's a hole in the clip, so you can tell it's a TJ Schwarz knife. I mean, there's really nothing out there that looks like this knife. I mean, seriously, when was the last time you saw this? It's like Spider-Man was involved at some level. I love it very much. And the thing is, the design is in the details as well. You get nice things like, for instance, okay, right here, look at the lock bar. You have a nice little raised lock bar insert area for opening the lock bar. It's not so raised, and it's in a good position that it doesn't affect things ergonomically speaking, but it makes it really stupid easy to unlock this knife. This knife is super fun to unlock in that way. Well, fun. What do you do for fun, Nick? I unlock knives. Beside the point. You have contours and chamfers everywhere. I mean, seriously, look at the edges of this little guy right here. Every one of those is an interesting little chamfer, and he's got chamfers above chamfers, all things like a freaking topographic map, which I like very much. The carbon fiber is radiused rather than being, you know, a flat sort of slab on there, which helps to add a little bit of depth, particularly with this, with these little pockets in there. And similarly, I mean, this is a beautifully designed knife. Look at all the radiuses over here. Then you've got a nice little cutout right here. here, which allows you to get better at the lock bar. These are nice little details here. You've got the chamfers everywhere. The fact that the swedge here is just nicely done here. I mean, seriously, look, they've got a little tiny micro swedge that's moving the entire length of this blade. And then it goes up to the tip here where it ends abruptly, but then it doesn't end abruptly. I love elements of this design, 100%. And then the clip, to me at least, feels like a throwback to the Koenig knives areas. So it's kind of it's his design language that's being carried through here. So I absolutely freaking love this design. I think TJ did a great job here. Next thing, the lockup system on this guy is a little bit interesting and different. I showed this off in the disassembly video, but it has an adjustable lockup system. You can see here that there are little gaps around these screws. That's not actually like slop or anything like that. That's because there is a screw on the inside here, which actually is it's a cammed screw. So as you turn it, it will the head will rotate a little bit, and that will push the lock bar up and down. And then you tighten it down, the insert that is, using these two screws here. And as a result, you can adjust the lockup right here. This guy is right perfectly at 50%, which is just where I want to lock up to be, but even if it wears in over time, you can adjust that, and it allows Millit more flexibility for things like blade swaps. At least that's my understanding. I'm not a knife maker, though. But this is a different approach, and, you know, oftentimes adjustable lockups tend to be fiddly and not work all that well, like camming stop pins, but this is secured in place with two screws, but it allows you to adjust the knife, and, you know, so I think this is a very, very nice little system, and as far as, you know, adjustable lockups go, it works well. Next thing, I gotta say the stonewash on this guy works very nicely for me. They've done an anodization and then they've got a stonewash too. You can see little hints of that going through here. There's a lot to love about that stonewash. It's a nice little detail, but it adds visual interest beyond just making the thing, you know, uniform blue. Although that's not titanium and it's not anodized, but it is blue. I got that going for me at least. But anyways, so that's good. The flipper tab on this guy, we will come back to and talk about later. But I love the idea of a very low profile flipper tab here. And indeed, this is very low profile. This is practically not a pocket Pekka, which is very, very nice. And it makes this guy, like I said, a little bit of a pleasure to carry, coupled with the clip and the compactness there. You also have three openable working mechanisms here. You've got the flipper tab. You also have at least for me, it's an index finger flick, although I'm not very good at it. There we go. Where you can just pop your index finger, and I just kind of put my finger below the nail in there. And then that just lets me pop this guy out, which is a more workable version in slick conditions for me. I find myself using it on a regular basis. It's really hard for me to do that at an angle where I'm not stabbing the table, by the way. But and then it also two-hand opens nicely because you can grab this little area here and it just pops open, which means that even somebody who's not super knife familiar can just pop it open, no freaking problem. And so that's a beautiful thing. And then finally, they are offering a variety of finishes and coverings. I mean, if you look at their Instagram feed, Millit that is, you will see that not only are this available all sorts of anodizations underneath there, but they also have carbon fiber, they've got wood. I think I saw at one point in time, or at least they need to have it, like a diamond wood or something like that. I've seen metal overlays. They actually have one that's done with a Damasteel overlay that matches the Damasteel blade that is kind of calling my name, I gotta be honest with you there. But they're offering a bunch of different finishes and coverings, and I love very much that they're giving that variety. This is where small batch production can really excel, is by giving you the opportunity to take a production knife and make it your own by making these small sorts of choices. And this gives you enough choices of blade, of overlay, of color in the background, things like that, that just makes it absolutely spectacular. And so to me at least, all of that is the good, is that it's got a bunch of finishes and coverings that can make this your own, really. It's got three different opening mechanisms, the flipper, the flick, and the two-hander. It's very compact. It's got a great clip, which works just beautifully. The low-profile tab makes it just great in the pocket, along with a relatively small size. It's got a nice stonewash to it, an adjustable lockup system that doesn't actually feel super fiddly and crappy. It's got nice details, 100%. The design on the whole is just beautifully done. The price is actually pretty solid. It's made in the States, and the size, at least for me, is just great. The thing that is, to me, the greatest, though, is the Damasteel on this guy. It's kind of weird to say that, but the thing is, I really find... So this is a type of Damascus, a pattern-welded steel here, and it's made by a company called Damasteel. There are many kinds of Damascus, but Damasteel is a specific brand. But the thing is, what they do, unlike a lot of your other Damascus-style blades, is they take two powdered steels and they mix them together. In this case, it's RWL34, which is a great steel in and of itself. It's a steel that I don't complain about on knives, and then they mix it with PMC27, a steel I'm not familiar with, but and that creates something that is well, freaking beautiful, because they mix it in a gorgeous pattern. But as a result, the Damasteel itself blade is very easy to sharpen. It takes a nice edge. It is still very stainless. And although it's not the highest end performer in terms of wear resistance, you don't buy a Damascus blade because you want it to cut better. You buy it because you want it to look freaking beautiful while it does it. But look, it looks great here. And I think that this is a knife, more so than most, that really complements it well. This is a knife with a lot of complexity over here that looks good with a lot of complexity in the blade. And a lot of knives, it can look very kind of like, okay, you got all kinds of party in the front, then you got business in the back, but this design works beautifully with it. And Millit has done a great job of it, because you can see they've put a great polish on there. I mean, seriously, this is a beautiful polish on this freaking knife. And you can see here just the etch on it is very nice, but it's not too deep. They've managed to mask off the areas where the etch took place so that the action is still super smooth. I mean, this is one of few knives where it works, and they've really made it work here well. The other thing that's great, and I don't tend to do this, but it's kind of related, is that they offer an upgrade to Damasteel. So if you got one of these guys in CTS XHP, which is a fine steel in and of itself, you can pay them more money. $125 is what I paid there, and they will swap out the blade. You send the knife back to them, they will swap in a new blade that is Damasteel in place of your XHP blade. This is great. This is really awesome of them to offer because it allows you to buy the knife at a lower price, at the $375, fall in love with it, or not, but probably fall in love with it, and then realize, holy crap, I want to do this in Damasteel, and you can do it. And you can take the knife that you've already bonded with, God, that's a weird thing to say, but I'm weird, and you can swap in a blade that's, just absolutely freaking gorgeous. And so I did the Damasteel upgrade, and it was really well-spent money for me, because it just takes this knife to a whole other level. I mean, this is a knife that deserves Damasteel. And so there you go. To me, at least, that's what's great, is that they've done it in Damasteel here, and that the upgrade is just... it's a great option. I hope more people do that. On the bad side here, Millit's logo, honestly, is huge. I mean, seriously, guys. That's pretty damn big. I know it's their first own branded knife, and so they were a little excited about that, but okay. Down a little bit there. Next thing, there are a lot of screws on this guy. You get screw. And, I'd kind of like to see at least some of those go. Maybe like an internally screwed clip would make this guy run a little bit cleaner. As it is, you've got an emergency hardware store in your pocket, but that may not be what you're looking for, especially in a knife that is 100% pocket jewelry, at least as configured here. Next thing, the XHP finishing on the original blade just wasn't all that great. It had the texture on it almost looked like a micro pitting sort of thing. I don't think it was actually pitted, but the texture was unsatisfying. It wasn't looking beautiful. I'm told that that's something they are not going to be having an issue with in the future round, that's something they've looked into and fixed, but still, it wasn't blowing me away. Speaking of wasn't blowing me away on the original blade, the originals, they engraved 1 of 50 on every one of the knives, because it was a 50 knife pre-order. But on every one, they put 1 of 50. Now look, if you're going to serialize the knife, that's a beautiful thing. I'd like to see it someplace a little more subtle, maybe on the inside there, the inside of the backspace. Serializing knives is great. I always support it. But if you just write 1 of 50, then everybody, like nobody has a serial number, but everybody has random crap written on their blade. And I don't like that at all. It just kind of came off as a little bit half-assed to me. And so I love the idea of them serializing knives, but do it right. Put, 49 of 50 and do it someplace a little bit more hidden there. Next thing, this guy does have the slightest bit of detent rock. I'm going to see if I can show it off here, but it's not super perceptible. I mean, shaking the knife, yeah, you can hear it a little tiny bit. It actually shipped with a thicker grease, running on a thicker grease, and that actually masked it entirely. But the fact that I've got it running on a relatively lightweight oil makes that apparent. And so that's not something I'm super in love with, and it's something I'd like to see them fix in the future, but it's not a huge deal. Next thing, I would like to see a slightly more aggressive grind on this. It's not super thick behind the edge, but this is a small pocket jewelry sort of knife, so I'd kind of like to see thinner stock or a slightly more aggressive grind on this guy so they could really push the cutting envelope. This is a gentleman's knife, and I firmly believe that I'm not going to be batoning with this guy, so I might as well make it so it really slices envelopes like freaking crazy. It cuts, absolutely. It's not a big problem, but it is something I'd like to see them do a little bit better and a little bit more aggressively in the future. future. Then finally on the bad side, you can see here that the tip of the knife is very, very close to the edge here. Especially when the detent is a little bit further up, it's right up there. It's not, I haven't stabbed myself on it. This is not like a full-on diabetes, poke the finger sort of tester thing, but I've definitely on occasion, like handling it and dragging it across like my shirt or something, I felt a little bit of a snag there, and that just means they're cutting it a little too close here. Backing this off just a little tiny bit, like a millimeter or half a millimeter something, would make this a little bit better, and it's not like full-on ugly, but it's something I think they could take a look at and address very quickly and very subtly in a future version. For me, what's ugly here, there are two issues that bother me a little bit. The first is that this guy shipped with a very weak detent. The first version had a detent that worked. I mean, you could flip the knife, but it was just kind of a barely flip, and if you did a sideways shake, it just flew open. I sent a picture to Millit, or a video to Millit, and they said, oh, God, no, that's not how this is supposed to be. Send it back. And they made it right, but honestly, that's kind of sloppy, because this is a run of 50 high-end knives. And for 50 knives, they need somebody sitting at the shipping station for these and just being the world's biggest asshole. There's somebody who could nitpick me under the table, making sure that not only is every knife perfect, that, detents are not flying out like that, but striving to make sure that every one that goes out the door is better than the last, because they're trying to compete on the high end here, and I think they're doing a pretty good job, but they need to make damn sure that sloppy never leaves the factory. So, like I said, they made it right quickly, and as a result, I was able to do the Damasteel upgrade while it was back with them. They mentioned that to me, and I jumped right on it, but I really do hope that mine is the last serious QC issue that they let out the door, because around the 50 knives, you can't do that. And then finally, on the ugly front here, this is, the flip tab design is just not optimal, because they've kind of put a push-button tab, a tab that's really meant to be pushed in this way, on a knife that really requires a light switch action. I mean, I cannot... There is no way that I can push on this tab because, I mean, look at it. The tab is right up. It's pushing directly into the pivot. So you really do need to pull in a backwards motion. This knife works like this. But they've put a very, very small surface for you to grab onto it. On the Damasteel one, it was actually polished, this back surface, which meant it was very, very easy to slide off of that. There's not enough texturing back here. That's why I added that extra texturing, because when it was wholly smooth polished, even with dry hands, I was sliding off of that guy. And, it's a little bit unpleasant to use in its current state, because you've got like a 90, well, not a 90-degree angle, but you got a little corner and you have to rotate it back. And if you slip off, you're going to drag your finger with very high tension across 4 rows of jimping here. It wasn't great. And it doesn't work at all with slick hands. I mean, even as it is, if I just put lotion on my hands, I'm going to do the finger flick because I know it's not going to happen. That said, this is the very best kind of ugly because it has already been fixed. Future versions of the Torrent are shipping with a slightly elongated tab that has actual texturing on here. And it's something they admit freely was a problem in the first round. But I still don't love seeing it. But I do love seeing that they're fixing it because it shows a commitment, willingness to improve, which if they keep it up is going to make this knife better and better. But the thing is, and so that's what's ugly to me, is that the flipped design wasn't quite optimal and, well, needed some serious help, let's put it more frankly, and that it did ship with a very weak detent, which in a batch of 50 just shouldn't be happening. So anyways, let's go into the final conclusion. My final conclusion about this knife is that it is just a great knife. It is a beautiful design, absolutely 100%. And particularly with this Damasteel, it just sings. This is one of the most attractive knives that I own, by a considerable margin. It's also very nicely made. I like this knife very, very much in a lot of the elements of its construction. And it's one of the best hosts for the Damasteel blade I have ever found in a knife that is actually practical. I mean, sure, like your Ron Bests of the world, doing the high-end art knife stuff, can do Damasteel stuff that makes you feel like you're on acid or something. But this is a practical knife that also looks great in the Dammy. And it's also a reasonable deal in terms of something that is relatively small batch, intricate, made in the USA, and Damasteel. I mean, you're not going to find something like this for $500 pretty much anywhere else. And so on the whole, with the flip tab fix for round 2, this is a very nice little piece. And honestly, I don't have any trouble calling it a gem. And especially with the second version, fixing the biggest issue with this guy, I am absolutely very, very happy to call this a gem. I think it's a great freaking little knife here. Yeah, there are some issues they can work out in the future. I'd like to see them address the detent rock a little bit here, and the tip they could address, but honestly, and as long as they're making sure that the QC is in line, because, sloppy is just not good enough at this price, but this is a knife that I really enjoyed carrying, and that I actually ended up carrying more than I expected for the review. I purchased this guy, and at first I was not quite convinced, and it was probably, honestly, holdover from having the issue initially. That's a sour taste in the mouth, but, honestly, as I've carried this guy more, I've liked it more, and I've really fallen for the looks and everything. And this is particularly once I added that little bit of texture, it's become a piece for me that's a great mix of the pocket jewelry art sort of thing and functionality. It's a nice knife for cutting things that also just happens to be freaking gorgeous. And so, not only did I buy this guy, but I think I'm going to keep it at least until I do a second generation, because I would like that better tab. And it's really, really grown on me in a substantial way. So I love this knife. I think it's a gem. I love seeing that they're fixing the major issue with it here. Got a couple of other things, but overall, this is a great design. It's done pretty damn well, and I'm really excited to see what is coming out of Schwarz and Millit next, because if this is the first run, boy, do I see a good future there. So anyways, I hope this has been interesting, that you'll take some time to mill it over, and may the Schwarz be with you. It's a combination maker, name, and Spaceballs joke. But mostly, I hope that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, and that this review released a torrent of positive emotions for you. That's right, 3 puns. All right. Have yourselves a good one, everybody. Bye now.